should be able to favor one party over the other. That's fundamental to arbitration. On the other hand, I don't see any rules actually providing that you can favor one party over another. So it's a moot point. Now, coming to the latest amendments before the chairman switch off my mic as I run out of time. Okay. Can we turn to, where are we now? Okay, the latest amendments in 2010. One is to bring the definition of arbitration agreement up to date to cover electronic communications. Okay, I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details. Singapore chose a model that sort of followed the English Arbitration Act definition rather than the ancestral model law definition. And in ancestral model law, the latest amendments, as you may be aware, under 2006, they offer two options for definition of arbitration agreement because there was so much controversy over whether one should still retain the requirement that an arbitration agreement should be in writing. Okay, so ancestral offered option 1, which is very short, and option 2. Okay, but Singapore didn't actually adopt either one in its entirety. But just to be brief, they actually included electronic communications as a means by which arbitration agreement can be concluded and recorded. The other one deals with a question of interim measures. There was a lot of controversy in Singapore in 2008 whether a Singapore court has jurisdiction to order interim measures such as marital injunctions in support of an arbitration taking place outside Singapore. Okay. There was controversy there, but Parliament has clarified now in 2010 that the Singapore court does have this power to order interim measures, including injunctions, whether or not the arbitration is seated within Singapore or outside Singapore. But what remains to be seen is how the court will exercise this discretion because it's subject to certain controls, such as the court should only step in where the tribunal cannot effectively make such an order, for example, if it has not been constituted, okay, or if it's an order that the tribunal cannot make. So it's still consistent with the principle of minimal judicial intervention. And even as I speak, there are ongoing discussions and forums on whether certain other aspects of arbitration laws should be changed. One example will be on negative jurisdiction ruling of a tribunal. Under the ancestral model law, there's no right of appeal to the court on negative jurisdiction ruling of the tribunal. But you can appeal if the tribunal finds that it has jurisdiction. So that issue is being discussed in Singapore now. And with that, I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. I think one of the features of you can see from what Mr. Chan has actually described to us is that the ability of the Singapore legislature to react so quickly to any decision that is not arbitration friendly as perceived by the arbitral community. I think the other interesting thing that I also see the Singapore courts are actually also quite activist in promoting Singapore as an arbitration destination. I remember the consternation that was caused by the decision that suggested that SIAC can administer an ICC arbitration. So I think that sort of sent ripples through the entire system, and I think ICC quickly moved to Singapore. So anyway, with that,
sorry.
Yeah.
In fact, ICC is amending its rules now, and they might provide that you can't do that and take over an ICC arbitration.
Yeah, I think it's very, very interesting how things like that are happening. But I think it's part of the dynamism that goes around in the entire world, where we try to have a position and also seek some kind of arrangements with all the rest of the arbitral institutions and rules. I'd like to move on to look at the Hong Kong perspective. And we have another distinguished speaker from Hong Kong, and he's Mr. Gary Su. Mr. Gary Su is served as the president of the Hong Kong Institute of Arbitrators, and he just, I think, stepped down as SecGen of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center. And he's well known in practice, especially in litigation and arbitration involving commercial and construction disputes. Mr. Gary Su is a chartered engineer, So he's something like, also a hybrid. You see a lot of this kind of people in arbitration. But he's listed on a number of panels, including CTEC, and he's a lot of work in China particularly, and he's also an author of a number of books and articles, Construction Law and Practice in Hong Kong, and one book that I always use, which is Arbitration in Hong Kong, a Practical Guide, which is quite a useful book, which I use quite often. And he also is very active on online domain arbitrations. So he's an adjunct professor in University of Hong Kong, teaching engineering law, which we would call construction law, I suppose. And, so can we please welcome Mr. Gary Su? Thank you.
Further than that. Well, we have the arbitration ordinance in Hong Kong since 1996, amended to embrace wholly the use trial model law to the international arbitrations. We have the domestic regime and still keeping it for now, and these are based on pretty much like the 1950s, 1972's arbitration acts. And we have the enforcement framework with using the New York Convention for those outside arbitrations. And we have a mutual arrangement with the Central People's Government in Beijing, so that arbitration awards made within mainland China and made in Hong Kong can be mutually enforceable. So the enforcement framework are there. And we have the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center being given the statutory power to appoint arbitrators if they are in default of agreement by the parties. So if you agree to arbitrate in Hong Kong without providing any further, or if you agree to a cross arbitrating in Hong Kong but it simply doesn't work with perfect logical types of causes, we can come to Hong Kong International Arbitration Center and we can appoint arbitrators for you. So we are pretty much like that. I'd like to cover just some update on what is going on in the ADR landscape in Hong Kong. And I will also cover mediation, which is an aspect evolving quick in Hong Kong. Just on the 2009 statistics, in 2009, we have a total of 746 cases handled by the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center. These include arbitrations, mediation, adjudication, domain name disputes, all this. And among these, there are 429 arbitration cases. Over 70% of these are international nature. Of course, we count international arbitrations, including those arbitrations outside Hong Kong, for example, in places like mainland and Taiwan. And these are the statistics. So we have also do 29 administered arbitration cases in 2009. This is something new to Hong Kong because we introduced the HIC administered arbitration rules just in 2008. We are happy with all this progress. And the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center, as usual, has the panels of arbitrators and mediators. The latest figures would be there are over 330 arbitrators, local and international, and over 550 mediators, local and internationals, on the panels. And what happened in 2009 in particular is the civil justice reform, where the court embraced mediation. So we are like in those situations in UK, you have to consider or be advised on mediation before your case can move on to the court. Otherwise, you may face some cost penalties if you do not consider mediations seriously. So there are, in April 2009, introduced some legislative reform. One of these would be the mediation encouragement, if I may call it. The other is on the interim measures, or support that the court can give. We have it in the common law in the past, but now we have it in sections 2G, C1, bracket 1A. providing that wherever your arbitration is whether it's local or international, outside Hong Kong, whole and related to Hong Kong, whatever. If you are looking forward to something like a security of the amount in dispute, the evidence, or some of the injunctions, meritorious injunctions types of interim measures, you can come to the court, and the court can grant you under this ordinance. So this is a move towards the legislative reform. I just have announcing that, of course, you know, there are similar things in Singapore as well. And on mediation, we have just set up the joint mediation helpline office within the High Court building. This is a joint efforts of those mediation service providers in Hong Kong, including the Hong Kong the Hong Kong Mediation Council and the Hong Kong Institute of Arbitrators, to provide mediation services, pretty much like the national mediation helpline in UK. So parties who want to have mediators appointed can come to this office and get a referral for appointment of the mediators. And of course, we have also some discussion on the arbitration bill, and let's move on to that. For the arbitration bill, just a background history, we have substantially modified our ordinance in 96 and 97. And since then, we have the committee in 98 to bring it forward some recommendations left unmaterialized, one of which is to propose a unitary regime for domestic arbitration and international arbitrations in Hong Kong, unifying both of them. That is the work of the committee, and the committee also take the opportunities to provide an update on the law, bringing in about all these jurisdictions, good practice, and international good practice around the world. I remember reading something in the audience of Egypt or Bermuda when we do all these committees studies. That brings up the report in 2003. And since then, there was a working group to move forward with the drafting. And there's a paper and the draft bill introduced in 2007. The consultation period ended in 2008 formally, but we are still trying to iron out a few things. And I actually remember talking about this topic back in 2007 or when we start off the RAIF Conference. And we are still pretty much in the last stage of it, and we are hopefully to have a arbitration ordinance really introduced in 2010. And I understand that in Burma there was already now a new piece of